How's it going, everybody? We're back. Sunday, Father's Day. We're gonna be looking at this 18 Houdini 18 backport today. It's kind of like, I don't know, I've never really heard them use the term backport before, but I guess it's just like a hotfix, or I don't know. I think like 3ds Max or Autodesk or whatever, they did hotfix updates or whatever. But I think that's kind of what this is it's just like an incremental, not even like 18.5, but just a I guess service pack is what some like Windows Service Pack 2 or whatever. It's kind of like that idea. Yeah, so they have this path to form that's probably the most exciting node or part of it. So this, you could do a lot of interesting things with it, kind of like motion graphics, animation and things like that. I don't really know why they're doing this stuff with it. Like, you could already kind of do this with the Carve SOP and then polywiring it, but you could, I think there's more interesting stuff. This actually seems a little bit cooler. But yeah, we'll mainly be going into that. They have this topo transfer node. I haven't played around with this. Daul, Julian, good to see you guys. I haven't played around with this too much. I don't know if I'll be able to figure it out today, but it seems you think it's gonna be good for deepfakes, Brando? Seems like if you're doing 3D scanning and things like that, it's super good. So the idea is that you basically like scan using LiDAR, or phones like iPads and stuff like that can scan people now, but the mesh is always a little bit garbled. So I think you can just clean it up kind of automatically in Houdini by finding the biggest island or the biggest connected 3D geometry. And then the topology is always going to be different with like LiDAR scans or any kind of scanning method. So this, oh, we got some subs. Thank you, Long Walk the Than, gifting to the community. So you basically can conform this to a fixed topology using the topo transfer, and then this would let you use, like, if you have blend shapes or animation or a rig or something like that, you can basically conform the rig to your scanned data. That's kind of interesting if you're into that kind of thing. Then there's this viewport fog. Maybe we'll try it out. We'll see what happens with it. This looks a bit odd the way that they have it set up, but I imagine it's pretty fun. I know with EV, you can do fog with it, with the Blender, the real-time viewport, and I've seen people get really cool things with inside of EV. You'll probably get some interesting things in the Houdini viewport, so maybe we'll try that out. And I guess this random walk subsurface scattering is a new thing. Maybe just for, yeah, it says it's just for Karma and it's not available in Mantra. So I don't know if we'll try that out, just because Karma is a little bit too slow, or it's just not used too much. So this session sync is another new thing or cool thing they're adding. And then this other stuff seems to be just smaller updates. I don't know if anyone else has cool things they noticed or anything like that. If you're not too familiar with side effects, they always do this changelog thing. Like, they release daily builds, or they recompile their software like much more regularly than Autodesk or other developers do. So it's a good idea to keep an eye on this daily builds page or changelogs. If you report bugs to side effects using their support report bug, you'll see their fix get noted or commented or whatever in this kind of feed of changes. So it's pretty cool just to keep an eye on like what they're changing or fixes that they find or whatever. I don't know. I don't read this too regularly these days, but it's interesting to keep an eye on. So I guess we'll get started. I don't know. I haven't done a lot of Solaris stuff, but pretty cool. So I got a Houdini shell with the 0499 initialized. I haven't like fully properly upgraded to it yet, just because it's Redshift doesn't have a build that they've released yet that supports this version of Houdini. So I'm just kind of temporarily switching to it for right now. All right, so if we go into Geo, we put down path deform. We see that there's this new node. If you look, you see the lock on it. That means that it's basically a digital asset. Even though I talked a little bit about digital assets and procedural tools and stuff like that last time. So even like side effects uses them internally to push and create new tools and develop things that way. So if you double click anything with a lock, you can double click and go inside of it. You can actually see like the building blocks and steps that they took to build these nodes. So this one's a bit complicated. So might be a bit intimidating if you're new to going into digital assets and stuff, but like this match size one that I use all the time, this one's a little bit more simple to investigate. So if you're interested in like tool building or that kind of stuff, just anytime you see the lock, it's cool to go inside and just like see how complicated it is or if they're doing anything interesting. One of the things I noticed with this curve deform node, I think it's based off of the they had this orient along curve. I think you can even do this like find. If I search orient, then I can find it. Just do select and close. So I can find it right here. So this was a new node that they've put in for 18. And just put one up here. And this one is kind of the building block, or they've just like expanded upon it to build this path deform. I think they also have the copy to curves. And again, this one, if you go inside of it, you'll see that orient along curve is like a building block of it. So all of these are kind of derived from the orient along curves node, which is this one. You can't go inside of it. There's no lock. So this is like something they've written in C++ or like there's no further levels or whatever that you can examine inside of it. So anytime there's a new node, you just usually click the question mark button or load the docs for it. Just see like what kind of pictures they've added, or usually I don't read the whole thing because it's can be a bit too verbose. So just check these out real quick. So they all, I don't know, look pretty dry, but we'll get started with just the path deform. So I think kind of depends how you want to start. We basically just look at the inputs and we need a spine curve and then geometry that we want to deform with the curve. So sometimes when I'm making a curve, I just start with a box, and then I'll add a certain amount of points on it, 7 or just a low number like that. And then using this add SOP, just go to the polygons and by group, and then that will just connect them by their point number. So if we look at this 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, just gonna make the font a little bit bigger. Just like connect the dots or whatever, boom, 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 boom. Then we have the full line. And then if you want it to be more like a nice kind of cursive drawing or something like that, you can just go to resample. This will kind of up-res or subdivide your line, but instead of treating it like straight edges, you can do subdivision, and then you get like a smooth kind of Bezier curve or cubic curve or whatever. They also have interpolating. So these just decide whether like to interpolate kind of through the anchor points, or subdivide treats them like this is like the tangent kind of, I don't know what the best, there's very technical terms to use to describe them or whatever, but basically I think that interpolating means it will go exactly through the anchor points or the source points, and subdivide will kind of use them like guides and then smooth them inwards from there. So that's the two differences between them. And then if you want different outcomes when you're generating these curves, if you just do sort random, then you can get new kind of point numbers which give you new outcomes, or you could also go like in a direction. So if you sort in a direction, you know that you'll have like no double backs, kind of. You'll always have like a smooth kind of curve progressing towards along a particular axis, essentially. This is pretty cool. You can also, if you put this inside of like a for loop or something, you could have like a curve generator to make like a pasta factory or something like that and get a ton of curves. We'll turn that off. Maybe we don't need as many resolution. I'm gonna go back to random, and then maybe just do a jitter after the points get scattered to get something like, I'm gonna go back one step. So this guy was pretty interesting, swoosh shape or whatever. So we have our spine curve, and then for this guy or the shape we want to deform to the curve or deform with the curve, we'll just use the Tommy test geometry guy. Got our nice buff man. Looks like he goes to the gym a lot or uses steroids, perhaps. We have some problems here that things aren't working 100% correctly. So let's investigate. So I think with this capture direction, and basically a lot of the copy tools and stuff like that in Houdini expect the geometry to be oriented along the Z or Z axis, depending on what nationality you are. Some people call it Z or Z. So we just need to rotate this guy like 90 degrees. So I think what's happening right now is it's treating like, it's just thinking that he's in a different kind of space than the curve. So I think -90. So this is the wrong way, +90. So just the up axis or positive axis should be the positive Z direction. So now we have something still not exactly what we want. Let's take a look at this. So if I play around with this fraction of GeoCurve, let me see if it's... Looks like it's not that stuff. Might just be the resolution. Seems like the resolution of the curve is changing the results a little bit. I'm not sure exactly how. So we got something a little bit different there. Let me try maybe just doing match size. So just to make this box or the curve like a unit. So it looks like we're a little bit closer with that. I don't know what's going on. I tried this. I tried this earlier and I didn't have any of these problems. Maybe. Maybe it needs to be like a different spinning around the axis. I'm not sure why he's getting so spiky like that. All right, I'm gonna try it with a new curve. I waveformed him. Yeah, we turned him into a MP3 file. So let's try it with a sphere. Maybe this scatter. Just do 4 points. So we simplified the curve. Now we got a it's kind of a boxy man. he didn't eat enough spinach and he just ate too much burgers, so he didn't grow tall. He's so that's what this rotating along the axis, and then on this one I've just made him a fraction of the length. So if we set this to 1, now you can see he's like garbled up a bit. I don't know what the difference is between these. Maybe it just really doesn't like this curve. It prefers this one. I don't know if you can make like a curve that's too complex. This one really got him. So I don't know if sometimes the way that a curve bends, like it becomes, it's like flipping between which axis it wants to project them along with this curve. Oh, I think I might know what's happening. Is it this? Yeah. So I think having this vertex normal attribute, the points after I scatter them are inheriting the normals of the box. So if we look at them here, you can see it's got the normals, and then the jitter is zeroing them out with that update normal. So my curve has a normal attribute, but it's just always a value of 0. So that's probably why this is messing up. Let's try the rename. And then just delete the normal. There it is. He's got a broken neck, but everything else is fine. So that's how he was becoming a waveform because we had a normal attribute on there by mistake. Let's go back to this one. So I think, like, if we want to have him you can kind of get interesting inflation or motion graphics effects or whatever just by scaling him. Then if you go along one axis, like maybe you could get him kind of flattening along the curve. It's pretty cool. So you can kind of you're working in like two different spaces, if that makes sense. There's like this, you can delta mush after to get some of the volume back. Yeah, I think there's that, and then there's this enable rigidity function that will try to treat him. Muscles are bursting out. This one will try to preserve some volume, I think. I haven't used the delta mush too much. You think this is a good combination? You just need to plug it in like that and you're good. Yeah, it seems pretty cool. Oh, the rest goes into this. The OG test geo. So this is bringing back some of the volume. Character stuff, fixing bad weight maps. So if you flatten him, nice. It's preserving all of his little muscles. We can make him really fat, really beefy man. Poor guy. This is this is what it looks like when he's breathing. It's just standing there, inflating and deflating. This is another level. But yeah, I think this is like some of the net art stuff that you see people make is like just the weird deformations. Like, what was the one guy, the walk cycle guy walking through the city? It's like super weird rigs and stuff. I think this one, you have this one, this is the same guy going to the store. Is this kind of like bad rig deformation stuff? That was someone ripping him off. So we have all the tools we need to rip him off now with the delta mush and the the path deform. Yeah, Albert, he's doing some soft body stuff, right? See him on Instagram quite a bit, making some cool stuff. These kind of guys. So this, I think, you think he's doing like FEM or those are the floppy bodies. He's doing like FEM or Vellum, maybe Vellum. But yeah, it's pretty cool. So we kind of have, like, if this makes sense, a local space that's this object space or like pre-curve space, and then we're deforming it into a different curve in a different coordinate space. So like, I don't know if there's a good way to visualize it. Maybe with this orient along curves, with the copy to curves is baked, kind of using it. We use a spile sop. Comes with this box, but if you, I think, just switch it instead of default, keep the DEF, but then type in axis, like AXES. No, I'm just not using Redshift right now, and I'm still using I forget whatever version is in my Twitch panels for like just to work in or whatever production. I went to the Redshift forums, but it seemed like they haven't compiled a build yet that supports 499. Like I installed the latest Redshift, but it didn't have a plugin for 499 yet. So you go into you get this def axis. Like this is another, yeah, I don't know, it's not a big deal. Like it will come out in the next week or 2 weeks or something, probably with Redshift, but sometimes if you're really like into cutting edge features and stuff, you have to work with like 2 different Houdinis. So I was just changing all this stuff in my bash RC or whatever. Like I have all these old Houdinis, and then I can switch between them using environment variables and everything. So like I have one shell here that has Houdini 0499, and then another, yeah, so Linux is kind of nice because you can do this kind of stuff. So if I open up a Houdini with this shell, this one's set up with Houdini, whatever my previous version is. I think it's like 419, maybe? Let's see what it pops up. 416. So, like, sometimes what you have to do, this is, I updated my splash screen recently. So it's like the OJ, when he was in his Bronco running from the cops. It's a different Houdini, a different escape mission that he was on. So this is 0.416. Sometimes like I would set up a render scene using this Houdini, and then you work with this, and then just so you're using the nodes, and then you like save out the geometry, like the BGOs, and then you just load them into your render scene. If you really want to use like the bleeding edge latest stuff. So that's what you might have to use, but I don't know. Usually I would just hold off for a week or 2 before fully upgrading everything to the latest Houdini. So with this, I was just going in, instead of the default box, sometimes I grab this default axis, just as like a visualizer. And then if I plug it into the copy to curves, nothing happens. So we haven't built the curve yet. So I just have to go into my other input. I could resample again just to reduce the spacing. And maybe these guys, want them a bit bigger. I don't know, made them too big. So you can kind of see what I was talking about here with the positive Z being like the direction along the curve, and then y being this like direction away from the curve, and x being this direction away from the curve. So instead of your regular world space coordinate system that you're used to seeing, where it's just like directions for x, y, and z, this is kind of the deformed path space, if that makes sense. So you could do some pretty advanced modeling stuff once you kind of think about things that way. So like if I do a twist, I think maybe just the bend. We'll set this to what's going on here. So I think I just turn off limit, turn on twist. Then we just want to go, I think with this one maybe. There it is. So now I can have him twisting like along the curve. That makes sense. So here I'm twisting in like world space or whatever, and then that twist gets applied to the deformed space or whatever. This might be a little bit more clear. Let's try this. Yeah. So we'll do a grid. We'll put the scatter into it to maybe 21 points. Then I'm going to output the p-scale. So if I copy to points to the circle, and then this one I just want it to be zx. So using this relax, I can get them just evenly spaced out, or a ton of iterations. Just get them looking somewhat nice. So if I copy these instead of my axis to the curves, maybe they're a bit big. I think the grid is like 10 by 10 or whatever, so I just have to shrink them down. And then right now they're again in the wrong space, so I think I can just rotate 90 degrees. Then we have a bunch of curves. Not too interesting yet, but what we can do is connect these. So what I'm going to do is bypass that visualization for now. And then if I do enumerate, this one will store the individual points index number. The reason why I would do that is afterwards, if you use this add node, then you can connect them, and instead of connecting everything like the cat's cradle style or whatever, you can do it by attribute and by that index. So now you have a bunch of curves that are all traveling along the source curve. And then if I just do polywire, then this guy, I can just type in $p-scale. So this will use maybe my, because I'm working in different spaces again, I would need to, I think, multiply by this scale factor. Yeah, I think I could skin them for the same effect. So I think there's one like more step of refinement that I can do to make this a little bit better. So this is good, and then if you want to get rid of those spikes, I think you just like set that maximum joint scale to all the way down to 1. That should fix it a little bit. You do more divisions, then you kind of have your cables or whatever going along the shape. So I think the master one that we want to use is this orient along curves, maybe. So what this does is it calculates a normal and an up vector. So if I just visualize my normal, it's going along the curve, and then turn that off. You can control middle mouse button, and then click up. And then you see that we have these curve tangent vectors or whatever. So if you kind of remember from earlier, that's what this basically that's what this node is doing, is it's saying like assign local coordinate space vectors for the curve. So if you, I think I talked about this the other day, but there's the it's like attribute copying and instancing point attributes. This n and up are what gets used for copying and instancing. So even the nodes like the sweep, I believe it uses copying and instancing attributes. So I can plug my curve in there, and then I think I can go back to the circles that we were making earlier. And I might just have to set these to be actual polygons. And we probably want to do the same rotation to them. And then this is built, that same final curve. So we still have I don't know if there's a good way to get rid of those spikes. But this is nice because in addition, there's the like twists, parameter and things like that that you can use. So you can do roll and all of that fun stuff. So I think with this resample, if I go a bit finer with my resolution, I'll get better interpolations and stuff like that. So this sweep SOP is nice because it uses all of these copy and instancing attributes. So knowing that, yeah, you could do ropes, vines, all of that kind of interesting stuff. I think even like with this attribute noise, so we can do color and it will interpolate everything. But another noise or another attribute I might want to add noise to could be p-scale. So now we just have like a variable noise-based thickness. It's kind of like muscles or whatever. You guys ever watch this movie, The Cell? It's kind of like the suits or whatever that the people wear in it. This kind of stuff. It's pretty cool. You can scale this and stuff, so I think instead of 3D, I just want to set that to one dimensional to be certain. So then you can get different kind of ropes or vines or whatever. So you get a bunch of interesting stuff this way. So basically, we just have this template or two-dimensional like distribution. You could even do something hand-drawn if you wanted to, and we're sweeping it. And then we just have this orient that's giving us the direction to place the copies or whatever, the variable noise of p-scale, and then this guy we have additional twists and rolls and stuff that we can apply to everything. And you can even do like art directable scale if you want to. So like with this, I just have a ramp that goes from the start of the curve to the end of the curve. If you want to, if you want to, you can do the caps or whatever for the ends of the tubes. And then I don't know why, but everything gets like the wrong normals. You just have to reverse it to get that blue tint, the back faces or whatever, to turned like off. So that's, I don't know, the reason why I brought all this other stuff up is because I don't know why it always does that. I think it's because this orient along curve is telling it this normal attribute, and then this one builds the curve. So here it's telling it to exclude normal when it's building the backbone. It might be because like all these circles are already closed. You could try going maybe to open arc. So maybe just reversing it up here. I don't know if that's the best, if that really helps you, but it's, I don't know. You could try to email side effects or something about it. Maybe they have a better explanation or reasoning or whatever. But yeah, so this is basically all of this stuff is like built using these same building blocks. So this orient along curve is the heart or the main brain behind everything. It's the it's like the real microprocessor, the real brain, the brains of the operation essentially. So this copy to curves, like I was saying, is based off of it. You can do the similar stuff. This sweep, you're kind of like building your own copy to curves, or that's what we did with these 3 nodes. So we built our higher level copy to curves or whatever, where we have some additional rolling that we can do that the sweep attribute supports. And then this path deform is an even kind of higher level tool or something like that. So we can do pretty interesting animations or local space modeling and stuff like that. Let's get this guy back to something a little bit closer to normal. I think this. Okay, so maybe we'll make him take up like 20% of the curve, and then using this, you can do animations of him wee flying around and stuff like that. And then yeah, this delta mushes are pretty cool. Wait, tried to have him preserve his original volume and everything like that. A very muscly boy. Even his clothes can't contain all of his muscles. Ooh. I don't know, you can make a lot of interesting errors and stuff with this. You guys ever saw the... I don't know if this is safe for work, but this is like similar glitches and stuff like that they were making with these maybe the similar ideas. You just have different deformations and stuff like that, and you can make net art or web art for your Angel Fire website. That's pretty cool. Yeah, so this is, let me see if I can clean this up a little bit. I don't know why he's getting so thick. Maybe that seems to be a little bit more interesting if we stretch him out like that. Oh man, he's like super small. So there we go. We got a skinny guy sliding along. Yeah, so I'm guessing like Albert was doing something maybe similar to this, but maybe applying like using this to drive a FEM or vellum or grain simulation to get like the soft body effect. If you just did like, let me turn off this subdivide for right now. We just did different methods of copying or to points, or just maybe copy and transform. So if I just copy them, expand them along Y or whatever, now we have a group of twins or quadruplets. So you could do that and then like twist them, apply the soft body, and you have a Albert effect, or something just as creepy or just as disturbing along those lines. I think his stuff was getting super scary because the guys were so shiny. It was like they were glistening, like they were just dripping with oil or something like that. It's pretty one use for this. So I think with motion graphics, like using it to just deform or distort fonts along curves is like a pretty common one. Like people are generally seem to be doing this like circle. For the font, so this is going to be our backbone curve. Just do open arc. Just go from 0 to 360, and this font, this one I think again we need to make sure it's along the Z-axis. I think we could also just change on here if we wanted to, the capture and align forward direction to X, and then if I map this, maybe it needs to go up a little bit higher, but now you have your text to curves tool or something like that. You can make posters, or you could be a graphic designer now with making whatever you want. I don't know what this could be. This is like infinite. Maybe we'll try Arial bold. So I think the reason why I have to set this is because the bounding box, the size of my font is like 0.7. It's not a complete unit. So if I do match size again, is like my favorite node to use. With this one, if I scale to fit, I don't know. It didn't seem to help. Maybe just setting this to fraction of curve length. It seems like that's more what I was thinking it was doing. So this is saying 100% of the curve distance. So you make pretty cool animations or whatever. Let me see. You can use this orient along curve first if you really want to like have control over things. What I'm trying to think about is like adding a twist to my font so that it's like a spiral or whatever along the curve. I don't know. You could hack away with Vex if you know your matrix stuff. Gonna see what happens here. So if you use a matrix, like that's a matrix is, I'm not gonna really go into it because it would be like a whole lesson in and of itself. But I think we can use it to rotate our vectors. If I do, I might be a little bit too rusty to even use this properly. Let me see what happens. I think I've typed these in wrong. We did it. So I think if I make a UV attribute on the curve, we just need something that's going from 0 to 1 along the curve. So if you do rows and columns with points, then you'll have this U attribute will always just go from 0 to 1. You can also do resample. This one, you turn off both of these options, like it won't change the number of points on your curve, but you can turn on curve U, and then it will just output your curve position to a point attribute. Sometimes I do it this way just to, this isn't actually resampling, it's just adding the extra attribute. That's a good thing to do. So basically what I'm doing with this is I'm saying, like, spin my up vector around the normal axis, which is pointing along the curve, and then the amount that I want to spin it is being set with this argument. So with the curve U calculation, this, I just need to scale it to, I think, pi. This rotation is not in degrees, I think it's in radians. And then I made a spelling error. So now you can see what I was saying. If I don't do pi, it's just to 1, so pi will scale it by 3.141, whatever. If I do 2 pi times 2, then we have like a full twist along the curve. We do 4, then we're getting like another rotation. So you can make all kinds of, we just go to a grid. You have like a ribbon or whatever. I don't know why we're getting the seam at the end there. It's a little frustrating. Maybe it's this extrapolate and targets. So with this you can do interesting math animations. Mathematics. You can add lowercase f time to it. So you play the animation, everything spins around over time. Go back to our font, get some interesting effects and stuff like that. You guys ever look up like kinetic fonts or whatever? I think people usually, kinetic I think is just the graphic designer's term of like moving or animated fonts. There's some interesting Instagram accounts or pages or stuff like that you can find where people are doing all types of, it's kind of like optical illusions or whatever, like interesting animations, whether you're mapping the font to UV attributes or like moving it around curves. Could switch this back to shaded and then maybe just go to like the alpha channel. Then we have our animation. Boom, we're done. Pow. Maybe we do 16. I think this font, we need to resample it to be like a higher fidelity, higher resolution. Maybe our curve go up more points. Might be we've just rotated, cranked stuff too high. Sometimes this flipping or artifacts or whatever, this is happening just because our faces are stretching. Like all of these characters or fonts are just a single n-gon. So instead of doing resample, we do remesh. This way we'll fill the polygon with triangles, so it will allow it to deform more smoothly. So I just upped the resolution another time. And again, this might be a situation with the poly soup. I think that just makes, we can play back stuff a little bit quicker. It's kind of like a, it's not the same as packed primitives because you can still edit the point positions and things like that, but it's kind of like you're packing just the primitives. Like I can't modify all of the individual polygons anymore. So all the faces are packed under one parent kind of polygon or face, if that makes sense with this poly soup. Might just want to go up a little bit with my resolution. I'm kind of in back to real time now. Do you do cool stuff like that? It's like a Mobius strip or something. Isn't it someone? There was one Houdini guy that did a tutorial recently about how to do the like infinite text effect. I don't know. I'm not going to be able to find him because I don't remember his name. But you can do all kinds of interesting stuff with this. I feel like font and curves, or just font and applying it, mapping it to geometry. So you can do this maybe even for building blocks for more curves and stuff. We just go to this kind of thing to make like a DNA helix or something like that. Let's try another copy and transform. Make a plus. Now we have like two interlocking helices or DNA strands or something like that. You can do divide. Ooh, fancy. This is like the collars that people wear in the Rembrandt paintings or whatever, the accordion style. Do you guys know what those are called? The fluffy ones? It's like kind of like that. I don't know. Accordion collars. These kind of things. It's pretty nice. What I was trying to do with this divide is you do remove shared edges. And then we do an ends sop. So this one is basically any edge that isn't a border or a perimeter edge. Like this edge is considered a shared edge because it's sharing, like it's butting up against other polygons. This edge over here doesn't have a neighbor, so it only has one polygon. This edge right here is sharing these two polygons, so it's considered a shared edge. So divide will mark all of those and remove them. And then using this ends node, you can unroll, which just means open up the primitives. Then we have these edges right here that I think what happened was the divide node is missing some edges, because these aren't actually connected. Like, even though they're spatially in the same location. So if we fuse before the end, I think that, yeah, it looks like that did what we wanted to. So now we have our fancy curves. I think with this copy node, could even, instead of going 90 degrees, if we just did like 45, we did another copy. Now we just have more, maybe we want to do 4 of them. Now we have a fancier kind of braided tube. And do wireframe. Now we have our little knitted, braided rope or something like that almost. You can do all kinds of interesting stuff. So even instead of circle, Joseph Mueller, Brockman. So, what is that? So your brain is fizzling? So we could connect this to, we have a little tool that we could use this with any parent curve. I think this one is a little bit too small. Let's try going up here. I think this. These things weren't connected together yet. The hell is going on? So now we have a wild curve. I don't know what's happening. Maybe I don't have enough points or something. I think I tried to skip. Had to do too many things. But with some time, you could apply this like rotation braiding style to any curve you wanted to. I think one of my problems is that I changed this direction here to use a different alignment than the other curves I was doing. So yeah, we got some cool stuff. Cool possibilities with path deform, with Oriental on curve, using all of these space switching stuff. You can even go inside of these things. Get interesting animations. Sometimes maybe just don't use that wire. Go up to the object level and turn on shade open curves in the viewport. Then if you create a width attribute, this will let the viewport know how thick to draw the curves. So this, in terms of like viewport performance, you can see is the quickest way and like smoothest way to draw curves or whatever inside of Houdini. There's these issues here. I think we can fix them if we do the path, polypath. Connect endpoints. Maybe we have to do another fuse. Maybe this ends. Oops. I don't know, sometimes it might just be the way that this width attribute is being used. You can usually tell if these are sharing points. It might be because this stuff is like my vertex order is going from two different numbers. Sometimes you have to do a sort node with point sort by vertex order, and then this will rebuild the curve properly based off of like connectivity of vertices essentially. I don't know. It could just be one of the ways that Houdini draws these curves in the viewport. It's pretty cool. You can do some optical illusion type stuff. It's probably just going to be a shorter stream today, so I'll probably end it pretty soon. Just going mainly over path deform, curve deform workflows, Oriental on curve, all of its uses. So I would say like just setting things up for the first time or figuring this stuff out, using this def axis node and then visualizing like curve orientation. This is super useful for debugging things if stuff doesn't appear to be facing the right way when you're using curves or animating with them. And then like I could kind of use this workflow again down here if I wanted a different way to visualize this Vex code that I was doing. Now I can visualize the rotations that I was doing. So there's probably a better way to do this without using Vex as much as I'm doing it here, but basically this curve U is going from 0 to 1, and then you just remap it using the radians or whatever. So you do $pi to get it to go from like 0 to 180 degrees. You can also do, I think, radians, rad function. Maybe it's all, you have to spell it out. So I think that's doing the same thing as maybe multiplying this by 2pi to get it to go to two radians, or essentially. Kieran, how's it going? We're getting close to wrapping things up here. I was just playing around with this path deform stuff and trying out different workflows, different ideas or whatever with it. We started out with our wacky boys, getting them. This is Father's Day. This is my 4 beautiful boys. Getting them going along the curve like that, playing around. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think maybe seeing the debug is helpful. It's also, I don't know, maybe like I don't do the best approach. Like if you're a new user, you would never know to go into Vex and use matrices and stuff like that. That's why I was saying there should probably be a better high level kind of tool. So with this twist, this is pretty cool. This is like a caustic effect or something. Woo. All of this stuff is what I was doing with this sweep, essentially. So we should be able to do it instead with this sweep. Oops. Oops. I don't know if this is what I want to do. Like it could, might have crashed. Did too many of them. Oh no. Yeah, I think Mops has some stuff for this. Let me fix myself up here. So whenever I get into a really bad place like this, I just try to do Control B as quick as possible. That gets rid of the OpenGL viewport, and you can turn stuff off and change things around. So I don't know if there's a quick way to recreate this twist effect without, because this sweep is like copying things across the curve. I kind of just want to do a sub routine of this and only use the rotation, but I don't want to actually apply the end result, if that makes sense. Mops has some stuff. Let me see what happens with this. Yeah, I don't know. I think this was a bad idea. And then I think also the game dev toolkit, if you guys use that. I think they were always supporting a path deform node or something like that. I know that they have a lot of tools for working with curves, because they get used quite a bit. Side Effects Labs, I'm sorry, yeah. Maybe I need to go to a different website for it. But this is because with game dev, you're constantly using like curves to lay out assets and stuff like that. The city roads. I don't know if they still have it, but there's a CMI VFX Houdini tutorials website, and they had this procedural road tutorial. It was always a nice one. So all of these highway infrastructure stuff built from curves, doing game dev stuff like roller coasters, it's another classic one, train tracks, some bridges. I don't know, bridges is kind of like a subroutine of roads. I think this one they had a pretty advanced workflow that would automatically build tunnels through mountains and then lay your highway like through the tunnels and everything. It'd be pretty cool. But this was always a big problem with Houdini, basically, is like getting orientation along curves to be nice. So in tutorials or things like that, people would have to rebuild a lot of these steps themselves. But it's super nice now that basically Side Effects has added this to us. So everyone, whatever Houdini you're using, as long as it's a version 0.499 or higher, you'll always have a path to form now, which is a little bit nicer. It's usually why I prefer trying to stick into built-in nodes as much as possible. Just because like if you send someone a file, it's less dependencies to worry about them. You say like, oh, you need the labs toolkit installed, you need mops installed, you need the QLab tools or whatever. Yeah, the orient along curves. This they just added in version 18, so it's been in here for a while. So this one is super nice. Before that, it seemed like people were always using this poly frame, but it wouldn't always do like completely the proper steps. So this makes n. Then if I set my n to tangent, you kind of have maybe it's you'd have to cross product it or do some other stuff. I think I have too many. Okay, so it's just that thing was on there. So sometimes you just get problems like here where it's starting and stopping. This is what I was talking about, where you have 2 point numbers that are the start point and the end point or whatever. You can see that this orient along curve is doing a better job at figuring this stuff out or fixing it. And then if I turn on my up vectors, we do this one. Like these, this is what Kieran was saying, is you'd have to cross product it to rotate it 90 degrees or get the orthogonal vector. You could try sometimes doing it this way, but this isn't as trustworthy for curves that aren't perfect circles. Like as soon as I start to add noise or distort things. So if I just add a general noise to my point position, maybe do like a lower frequency noise, this might not be as good as this up vector. Is a little bit more proper in terms of the way that it's constructed, or as things roll, like as things travel along the curve, this one is always pointing one direction. So this is why taking this and then doing the cross product is a little better. But I think with this one, a problem that you get is if stuff is animated. If I animate this noise, somehow my noise isn't animating. I've done something wrong. Maybe this sparse convolution doesn't support animation. Let's just go back to the defaults. So I guess that noise function doesn't support animation. Sometimes you just get flipping with this polyframe node, like it wasn't as stable. But I think this will give you more smooth rotations and stuff like that as your parent or source curve or whatever deforms. So we could examine our results. Maybe with this one I just don't want it as rough of a noise function. So I don't know, maybe that's all right. Hey, Luis, how's it going? So we don't have as much flipping, or it's a little bit, the E is a little bit wonky, but if I switch my things here to polyframe, yeah, I don't know, maybe it's certain circumstances I would say it's just always better to use this orient a long curve instead of setting up polyframe. And then you can see without it, we're not getting nearly as good of orientation or rotations or stuff like that for our vectors. There's also stuff like doing this orthogonal frame. I don't know. Oof, that was a bad idea. I was trying to make the font bigger, but I still had my remesh, so it was also like changing the resolution too much. But yeah, I would say to try to use this orient along curve now instead of setting up polyframe and everything like that. But yeah, it's good to see any curve utility is getting more support and more features and stuff like that in Houdini, just with every aspect of procedural nature and workflows and stuff like that. Curves kind of always get used, and the more things you can do with them, the more possibilities of stuff you can create. So even using particles with like having local spaces or whatever, I think if I just make a pop network, they have the curve force. Gas curve force is for Pyro and Voxel volume-based sims. Pop curve force, you can use it with any point-based simulation, so even Vellum and stuff like that. So I think even this guy, if you link it up to a curve that has attributes on it, we'll just do a line for right now, maybe. 50, just a higher resolution. We have ends and ups that look good. Yeah, it should be good. I'm just gonna turn these visualizers back off. Maybe I'll copy my rotation. So with this guy, I need a curve view attribute for it to work. So we were just spinning our little spiral staircase or whatever, using that code to spin vectors around the curve over time. And then let's just do a sphere. Just make it a little bit smaller. This is going to be the emitter, the emission source for my particles. Now I can take this, set it to second input, plug it in. We see the direction it picked it up okay. These other forces should get picked up along with it too. I don't know. I might just give up on this. I'm guessing, I don't know, I guess you can already do, you already have enough controls with the orbit and follow and all of that stuff. Sometimes you need a lot more sub-steps to get things going along the curve properly and stuff like that. I guess what I'm saying is there's no reason to add that up vector and stuff. Like I can already do spin stuff around the curve with the orbit and already have enough controls and stuff like that here. Let me see for a second. So these arrows are spinning. I'm just gonna pin the view inside of my DOP network and then turn that off. So it looks like this is respecting the modifications that I'm making to the up vector, but it's probably changing some of this local space stuff, but it was a little bit confusing, just, I don't know, the way that all that stuff happens or whatever. So this wasn't the best example to use here. But it's it'd be a different idea or a different topic or something like that. But yeah, I think that this kind of stuff we were doing earlier is probably the most interesting. These kinds of font-based rotations and stuff like that we can do. Let's just play around with this a little bit more. Probably going to be ending for real this time. I know I said it earlier, but probably 5 more minutes or something like that. So if you have any questions, feel free to get them in now. If you look at the schedule, going live Wednesday again. That'll be the next day. Cashing in on the MoGraph industry. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Maxon made some big moves acquiring Redshift recently, so they're both kind of butting heads right now in terms of capturing the MoGraph audience. Thank you, Tokyo. Good to hear you're enjoying the streams. If you guys want to support this, you have a Amazon Prime account. You can link that up with Twitch, and it would be it's like free for you to subscribe. Thank you, Tokyo. The Bezos bucks. It's like taking Jeff Bezos' money and giving it directly to me. Cinema 4D users are increasingly jumping to Houdini to add to their MoGraph systems. Yeah, it seems like I don't know too much about Cinema. If you subscribe, you also get a little Vex Wrangle hat, I think, in the chat. hopefully, if I've set it up properly. You also can use the Kim Davidson Twitch emote. But yeah, it seems like Cinema 4D is really nice for for style frames and like quick sketches for ideas and stuff like that. But I've seen a lot of people kind of run into issues when you have to address very specific notes. Like kind of you have these high level tools as part of the software, but as soon as they don't support a feature, they don't give you everything you need, it kind of falls apart. So with mops, I've played around with it a little bit. It's definitely really useful. The way that Henry or Toadstorm set it up is, and he was working with the one guy from Intagma for a little bit, but I don't use it regularly just because I doing streams and teaching Houdini, and then I don't like to have another dependency in my workflow or whatever. But I think it's super nice to have mops, especially for a bridge, to like pull people over from Cinema. The way that he's like recreated fields and effectors and all that stuff is super handy for like people coming over from Cinema. And then just the speed of it, how he set it up using like packed primitives and everything like that is pretty nice. But yeah, it seems like to me Cinema is very nice for like using the tools that it provides, but trying to go beyond that and then customize things, you can start to run into the issues, I guess. I don't know. I mean, it just depends. To me, it seems like if people were using like Illustrator and just starting out as a designer, then they're able to pick up Cinema pretty quickly. But if you try to go from like Illustrator to Houdini, it's too big of like a jump in terms of like it's just too technical at first for people. But hopefully with mops or things like that. Yeah, Simon, it was pretty cool to see him pick up Houdini and like slowly, some of those people, you could see them like slowly porting over their existing workflows and rebuilding and like expanding on them and stuff like that is pretty cool. Like Simon, I think, was doing some of his like recursive subdivides and extrusion stuff in Cinema 4D, and then he probably ran into a wall or like some roadblocks or something, and then he started building OTLs. One of the procedural in motion talks, you can see him use like one of the recursive subdivision OTLs in Houdini. It's pretty cool just to see him like start making his own tools and things like that. Houdini seems like mostly good to jump straight into if you're coming from Max MSP or coding type background. Yeah, so was kind of my entry point. In college, I had learned processing. Like as part of our curriculum at the start, there was like a computer art major or something like that, but we learned this thing here that's a Java-based creative coding platform or whatever, is developed by these people at MIT. And it's basically like meant to be your easiest way into creative coding, like just making art using programming syntax or whatever. So I kind of had a technical background to begin with. So that's why I moved into Houdini. At the time, I was thinking about Cinema 4D a little bit, but because they had like espresso nodes and stuff like that. But I was lucky enough to get good advice from people, and they said like, no, just go to Houdini. It's the one that you want. Otherwise, you want some other 3D background first. Yeah. So like Max people who are using Softimage, like that's older software or whatever, but they had the ICE programming language or programming nodes and networks and stuff like that. And that kind of stuff, I think, translates into VOPS and VEX, not like one-to-one perfectly, but it was an easy jump, it seemed like, for a lot of people. So it just depends, yeah, on your entry point and everything like that. But with MOPS, I think it's I don't know, it's a helpful bridge for people coming from Cinema, or even people starting Houdini for the first time. It's nice to have some like higher level tools. Yeah, I don't know, I think that's the hardest thing. I mean, I would say it makes the most sense to start with Houdini, like, instead of learning something else, if your overall intention is to use Houdini in the end. Like, it's just a long process because there's a lot of stuff to learn, but it's getting easier. There's more material, and there's more, like, you don't have to build as much stuff using Vex and all that stuff. So I don't know. I got something pretty cool with this at the start, but I think my other steps were missteps. Like this copying to get a bunch of slightly rotated or offset fonts. Sometimes I'll just go to the alpha channel. Like if you go to perspective, you turn on this correction toolbar. Then you can change exposure. I also do it just to get like silhouettes or compositions, like minimal compositions or whatever with the viewport styles. Let me see what happens if we... Oof. There it is. So this guy was automatically conforming everything to always be a unit size. But if I disable that, then I can like extend the curve space up, essentially. Maybe this rotation isn't the best direction. There it is. I think it's pretty cool. Maybe with our letters, instead of spelling out a whole word, like just a single character. Maybe that's too much. I don't know. I think it's a bad idea. I don't know, getting into too big of a mess. Yeah, I think the path to form is really a good thing to know about. Yeah, brush strokes or any I don't know, any effect you're doing. Usually you end up laying out curves to kind of guide the forces or stuff like that. Procedural modeling for games I was talking about earlier with roads. Being able to use path deform and know like the vector attributes, all that stuff is super useful, kind of regardless of what you're making, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. So I'll just save this file. It's not super useful, but it will be in the Discord channel with the other stream archives and everything if you guys want to refer to it. This is 21st Sunday. So this I'll just, I don't know, be half the form. If you are opening it up, you will need to do the versions Houdini 18.0499. You can download it on their website. Otherwise, you'll get errors because it won't be able to find this node or the operator definition or whatever. I don't know. Yeah, hopefully it's useful for someone. So I'll put that in the Discord folder. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Have a good start of the week. We'll be back on Wednesday.